And with that, I want to welcome and introduce our guest tonight for the Ask Me Anything C++, Inbal Levi. She is part of the C++ community and she's part of the committee. And there's a lot of other things which I don't know about what she does. So please introduce yourself, Inbal.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Jens, for having me today. I'm really excited about visiting Invim virtually, and I heard really good things on the on-site conference as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. So just to complete your list of things, I'm also the Israeli NB chair and SG9, which is the Ranges study group chair, helping sometimes in Library Revolution as well, which is the group that is responsible for developing the standard library. And yeah, and we also have an Israeli conference, which I'm involved at, Core CPP, and I'm looking forward to hosting you there someday. I think you're familiar
I
with
look
ABI
forward
and
one day being there, yes. Um, I think we all look forward to traveling again and, having the world returning to a more normal state than we had in this year. Um, so there has been a lot going on about C++ in the last weeks, and one of that was that prior to this conference, there was a meeting in Kona in Hawaii where people talked a lot about C++, and I know that you have been in there, and just what was your experience like, and what have you on news about what happened in Kona?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So first of all, if people are interested in the details, there's one post by Herb Sutter and one post in Reddit that a few of us gathered and created together. So I'll post that in the private chat, and you can post it in the channel, I think. So yeah, a lot have happened in Kona. That was actually the first meeting on site after almost 3 years. Our last meeting was in I think February 2020. Yeah, almost 3 years ago, in Prague, hosted by Hannah, which was, by the way, a great meeting. Um, so first of all, to start with, clearly just meeting people in person was really special and great. And I think when you work with people a lot of time, as we do in the committee, discussing, we have a weekly telecons these days. Sometimes just you know being introduced to some of those people that you've been working for a while with, it is really helpful because you just it makes the collaboration easier. um, I have to say, so I'm vigilant, hope I'm reading the right word, about the meetings, the in-person meetings. It's not easy to get to the, for some people that live far away, it's not easy to get to some of the locations. Makes it even harder when this happens 3 times a year. So there's quite a debate in the committee, internally in the committee, whether or not we want to go back to full. Right now, we're going back to full schedule, meeting approximately 3 times a year on site, and having also some telecons, but not in the same, not as much as we had during the pandemic. Um, so I would, in my personal view, I think a great way to do that would have been meeting twice a year and having two virtual plenaries. So every quarter, we could have the in-person meeting, say for the first quarter, and then do telecons as we did for 3 months. and then repeatedly. I mean, that's my personal idea of balance, but others may feel differently. And this is, as I mentioned, a great debate in the committee. But yeah, going back to Kona meeting, I think the meeting went great. We've managed to do quite a lot of bug fix for 23. For those of you who aren't aware, the C++ is the C++ standard is working in a 3 years cycle, and this was the last meeting. I mean, the one meeting before the last meeting on which we're going to announce C++ 23. So that was a bug fix meeting. The next one, which is planned in February in Issaquah, is going to be a bug fixes and then the official publication of 23.
Yeah. So you mentioned 2020. You mentioned C++ 23. Uh, what's your view on the standard? I mean, it's a standard which is heavily influenced by the pandemic, and what's like your favorite parts of that?
So 2023 is not as large as 20 have been. I think it's quite noticeable. But I think that it makes sense in our way of work, in the way that C++ develops. We do get that sometimes. We get a large version that is, making significant changes, having a lot of new features, and then we have smaller version that basically addresses the issues and bug fixes, and also try to improve the major features that we got in 20. So, I mean, personally, I think it's a good balance. I'm sure, I mean, there's other peoples that have been longer in the committee and may have different opinions, but I think it makes sense. Moving too quickly can also be a bit intimidating for some of the companies, for some of the projects. So this is a good balance in my mind. So
I was muted.
oh.
So yeah, so upvoting questions helps me, and asking question helps me a lot more. So there's the first question which gets upvoted is like, some people like Bryce Lelbach feel ISO is a disservice to C++. What's your opinion? Should C++ be developed outside ISO?
So I can only have my personal experience to get an opinion on this. I mean, my personal experience was that the process is relatively democratic. I don't feel that there are significant the companies that try to affect or get more benefit by being. I mean, I don't feel that this process is in danger of being affected. I feel that it is relatively democratic. However, I would love to have more people involved in the process, and that means get technical opinions. That means collect users' input and users' preferences. Designing a language and a library is a really hard work to do when you got without the feedback. I mean, we could, as a group of 250, 300 people that are currently active in the committee, we could may have ideas about what's important to us or what we think is useful. But I greatly believe that what we need to do is focus on what's important for the around 5 million C++ developers. So I think in regard, like, to answer the question, I think the ISO process is reasonable in terms of getting decisions. but I would love to have more people involved in the review process. I would love to get more technical opinions and users' requests or preferences combined into this progress. Now, we do use GitHub. We use, I would call it modern software development tools in a way, things that other languages also use to develop. Um, and I think it's great. I still think that the discussions are important. I think that I don't believe that we could have a full develop a full language just by doing GitHub issues or opening tasks or whatever. I think the discussion is crucial. Um, and I just want to add to that. I'm not very active in the committee, but in the community, but I am involved in carbon as well. Just taking interest in the progress and participating in some of the meetings. And I I mean I really value their way of progress. Um, I still think that the discussion could have been between more people. So like I love the fact that Carbon are trying to approach the community. I think that both Carbon and C++ could have done more to get more opinions into the progress. But yeah.
True. Um, there is a simple question on what is the status of reflection on C++?
Well, that's a great question. So first of all, I just want to remind people that Hannah is also in meeting C++. She's a really nice person, and she's the chair of the Reflection Study Group, by the way, for those of you who haven't. Uh, and um, I think that I think there's a agreement among the committee people that reflection is a very important tool, and that we should really pursue having that as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this is a very very complex tool. It's a toolbox. It's a scope of things that you need to have in order to achieve the usability um, required. So it's I wouldn't say it's designing a feature. I would say it's almost as designing a new library, a reflection library in a way, um, and that's not an easy task. And as in other things in the committee, a lot of people have different opinions about how we should, which design decisions should we do. So I think that there's a consensus on the fact that we need to have that, and this is an important tool for our toolbox. But there's also going to be hard time in aligning everyone's opinion on how this thing should look like. I think we did get to some agreement, and if you see the Reddit posts also have this. So there's the reflection TS, but there was also a new paper by David and others that I currently failed to remember, so I apologize. Um, but yeah, there are directions that we agree on, but it requires a lot more work. And I wish I could, but I can't promise it will land in 26. I wish it will, though.
Um, Let me quickly resort the submissions. Um, yeah, so Nikolai Yozotis painted a pretty grim picture. Okay, so maybe first I want to ask you, um, did you watch the opening keynote yesterday? Because I know you theoretically could have watched that keynote, but I don't know if you had time.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't have a chance because I came back from Kona around 2 days ago, and everything. I'm still trying to get on top of things. I have heard about this in Twitter, where C++ is being developed, clearly.
That is a
um,
different.
yeah, I have heard
So,
about it. I would love to watch his talk. Honestly, I'm sure, I mean, knowing Nico, I'm sure he have a lot of useful and beneficial information to share. Um, yeah, so I can't address the technical part. I've also seen the repo very briefly before it got down, but I can address the technical part because I haven't seen the talk. I can say
yeah.
that I believe that. So I want to say development of C++ is not something that it should be in a closed group of people. We love to get input. We love to get people's opinions, people experience, people, as Nico, come over to us with a paper and with suggestions, and we'd love to consider them. I can only talk about SG9, you know, as I'm leading this one, but I can honestly say that we're always happy to get input from people. So um, if I understood correctly, Nico have some reservation about how views have been developed and implemented and designed in 2023. I would love to get his input. As always, he's
Okay.
in our mailing list. He sends occasionally. He sends some examples and requests, etc. And I mean, he have managed to fix a major, range-based for loop recently, and I'm sure he been talking about that as well. So
Right.
yeah, he knows that our progress, he knows our process, and he knows how to give us feedback. And I'd be happy to get his feedback.
Okay. So just let me know. Nikolai also just painted a pretty grim picture of views, notably the fact that they do not propagate constantness. What is your take on the current design? Does it need modification to be safe for all those just edge, or are those just edge cases we should not worry about? So yeah, what I remember from Nico's keynote is like his main point is that constant propagation and constantness in views as such is currently, in his opinion, broken. And as you are the chair of this group, um, what is your view on this topic? And is there progress on this? Is this something which the committee is like having in the view, or uh, what's your take on this?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm aware of Nico's opinion. Um, I can say two things. First is that, I mean, we do develop, we do get features and into the language and library from, you know, popular repos, popular libraries, as we did with FMT and format, things that have usage and and also users, like a large group of people that want to have this thing that is using the feature, and we usually don't get features without this. So I mean, we think quite carefully about what we get into the standard. And that was the case in ranges as well. So, I mean, I can only say that we don't do perfect work all the time, but we do get, we do try to iterate over proposals quite heavily before we decide to get them into the standard. So what I'm trying to say is we would love to get fixes. I don't believe that the problem is as large as Nico is trying to represent it. I do think that Nico have some good points there. We also have, auto, which can easily get dangling references, and this is something that we use quite, extensively, and people are aware of how to use that correctly. Mostly. Um, so I don't think that Nico's point, the point that Nico is making, that this is like completely broken and dangerous. I mean, yes, C++ used incorrectly is dangerous. That is true. We don't have, we don't make it easier for our developers. And I mean, you could suggest that this is by design. We want to give um, the larger freedom to use the language, but that also comes with a cost of having, having have to know how to do some things. There are some pitfalls that you need to know how to avoid. So my first part of the answer is, I think that the problems are not as presented, and I think that the basic idea behind views is coherent. On the other hand, I will say that we did discuss, we do have some proposals, for example, by Hannes, sorry, I think you may know him, I think you're from Germany, a very nice person. So he came to Kona and presented a paper that brought up an issue that I mean, we all agreed that the issue is, worth solving, and I can also post a proposal later. But and it's addressing something very similar to what Nico had brought up, if I understood correctly, by not looking at the talk, by the fallout. But we were very happy to get Hannah's proposal. We were very happy to discuss it. We didn't like the specific solution, but we're planning to iterate over the design more, and hopefully to get this ready for Issaquah, which is the last chance that we have to fix C++ 23. And I really hope that we'll be able to get those problems sorted out. So, I mean, on the one hand, I want to say we don't treat things lightly, and we don't get things into the language and the library lightly. We do try to do, to only get things that have been heavily used, heavily requested by users. On the other hand, of course, we can fix things, and we're happy to. Of course, the limitation of ABI breakage and generally API breakage is always there, until, at least for now, until we'll decide otherwise, if we may. But on the limits and on the scope of what we can fix, we're always happy to do that. So yeah, I'll be happy to forward Hannah's paper in the chat, and everyone, and this is an open invitation. Everyone that feels that they have ideas, or they would like to contribute to making ranges a better, to improve the usability of ranges, are really always welcome to. Even if you don't know, or you don't have the time to write a paper, we'd love to have, you feel free to join our reflector and propose things on a mailing list. We're always happy to get input.
How much work is it to be an SG chair? Why do you do it? And does anybody pay you for your standardization work?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question.
3 in 1.
I mean, so I want to answer a few different, like, for me personally, and also the general answer, which is not exactly the same thing. So to start, yeah, being an SVG chair is quite heavy. It, I would suggest it takes all the time that I would have liked to have for hobbies. For example, I gave up on the notion of having hobbies, and instead I do study group things. Yeah, I mean, to be more concrete, yeah, you have to follow up. You have to make sure that you know what's going on in regards to proposals that relates to your field. Even if the people proposing them not necessarily are reference to you or to the group, or even if someone doesn't add ranges in their proposal, if it's relevant, you should be able to collect that and get that discussion in the group. Of course, you want to have like good people involved in the progress, and that's actually, it's not on me. I mean, I, I couldn't have done that without our really, really, really helpful members. So I can say, Barry, team, Steve, that have been very helpful in Kona, and Casey, which is of course my co-chair. There's others that I might maybe, Michael, and others, Corentin, of course. So it's nothing. I'm not doing that by myself, and I couldn't have done that if, without the really great people and that are involved in the progress. And this is just recently, of course, I don't need to bring up, I think, Eric's name, because I think everyone are aware that ranges have been, have a father. But so it's a lot of work, but it's not just my work. And definitely, I think that I'm maybe doing the least of, and our group members are doing a lot to both improve ranges and also um, help other people that are not familiar with the details to get into this work, and I'm really grateful for that. Um, does anyone pay me for that? So um, the general answer is that some people in the committee are getting paid for their committee work. This is usually people that are in, located in leadership roles, etc. Um, I can't say. I mean, I've just started working in a new workplace. um, there's no budget for, time budget or money budget for the ISO work. Putting aside the flights, which I am getting paid for. But again, this is not across committee arrangement. The different people in the committee are, have different levels of financial support from their company they're working at. I think that this thing, no one does that because they're getting paid or because they're getting, benefits or whatever. If you're not really passionate about C++ and about developing this thing that you believe in, um, money is not the point here. And you could get paid for doing that and get, hold the official title or whatever, be considered as a member of the committee and do nothing. And you could be like, a student with part-time job or no job, and, just doing that for fun and making a tremendous change. So I just want to emphasize, this is not like a regular, work that you do, that you have a fixed time, and that you start, 9 to 5, and you decide that you're doing. Um, it's really up to you how much you want to put an effort in this thing, in the thing that's called C++. How much you care, how much you want to improve. You can, and the range is really wide. The level of involvement and also the level of financial support people are getting.
Yeah, it's, I think, something people need to understand, that there's some people being on the committee to be paid for it and to be the voice of the employer, their company, and there's people which are the representative of their nation, as you also already said that you're part of the Israel national body, which is also like kind of a relatively new thing to exist. So maybe we want to talk about that a little bit, like um, how that is structured and how like the national body works for Israel, which
Sure.
you are part of.
Yeah, sure. So I'll be happy to share. So in fact, Israeli national body have started, I would say, officially just before Prague. So the way it started, and I think this is really worth mentioning. Bryce Lalbach came to give a talk in our local conference in Israel, Core CPP. And he also gave a lightning talk about how Israel should start a national body. Now, this was, I think, our first, yeah, I think it was our first international conference. I mean, I wasn't involved back then in the organization. It was Adi and Michael that did the work, and I was just a speaker back then. um, so yeah, and I think at first people had no idea what Bryce was talking about because it wasn't a known thing in the community of local C++ developers. Anyway, a few of us took this into consideration and scheduled a meeting, post a conference, started working on that, starting to understand what the meaning of having a national body is. Eventually, we've approached our standards governmental office and started the national body. So I am the chair of the Israeli National Body, and we're meeting approximately once a month. Um, we discuss papers. We have people in our group are on different levels of involvement. As I mentioned before, that's also relevant for the national body. So you could basically come to the meeting and just hear about the recent papers that have been published, or you can come and ask for guidance for this proposal that you're working on. We also start like work groups. I would say unofficial work groups inside a national body. For example, we've just recently started a reflection work group. So what we're aiming to do is basically take the current implementation of reflection and give some feedback, user side feedback on that. Um, and we that requires quite a lot of work and collecting the data from everyone, etc. So we also do that. So I would suggest that the Israeli national body is less official than others, mostly because we, sort of set the course by ourselves. Of course, there's regulations, and the governmental office is making the final, the setting the tone, but we basically build the progress and what we want to have in our group. Unlike for example, the United States national body, which exists quite longer and have more, I would say, official processes, we basically focus on what we're interested, what the members of the group are interested at, etc. And I mean, for me at least, I think it's a great experience. I love meeting with people once a month and talking about, things that I'm passionate about. um, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting progress, but we're still learning and we're still developing. And as naturally, a lot of our members have less experience in the ISO process than other members of the committee, since we only exist for approximately 2.5 years. But it's a great national body, and I'm really proud in all of our members. By the way, one of our members have also presented a paper in Kona trying to fix content iterator, etc. So yeah, we're doing a great progress.
That's nice to
Hestia,
hear.
that's his name.
Um, so, talking about the committee, in the first keynote chat, and also I think Nico said that on stage, um, there was not so serious, a serious proposal to have C++ beginners on the committee to lower the entrance barriers to the language and to get more feedback on, like, how to get a little bit outside of the groupthink. What do you think about the beginner's ambassador role instead of help with that?
I will be an enthusiastic supporter. um, I mean, my opinion, I think I make it quite clear. In the limit of what I can do, in the the scope of rules of ISO, which is quite wide. I mean, we had, for example, I would mention that we had few of university students been invited by Jens to the Kona meeting, and we also had a few high school students. Um, and I think this is a great tradition that we should continue. And I've said that a couple of times. So I hope we'll have that in Issaquah as well. Um, in general, I think, as I mentioned before, we need to get more feedback and we need to get more people involved in the progress, and we need to get people feel more comfortable approaching committee members and experts, and just talk to them about this feature that because we are software developers, or architects or whatever, but we don't know all the answers. We definitely, I mean, this is a progress, and we do our best, and we try to do the best that we can for the community, but we're not like, we're not magicians. We don't have all the answers, and that's
Mhm.
why I think the feedback is very important. And specifically, I can tell you that a lot of people are working really hard on improving the readability and the usability of C++. You could argue that it's not achieving the goal, or whether it is or not, but the core guidelines being, by Herb and Bjarne, are an example for that. So, I mean, the topic of making C++ easier, both for beginners and for experts, making this uh, improving readability, improving the ability of developing large projects in C++ and maintaining them for a long time, is something that we care a lot about. So it's definitely not something that we just recently started to investigate. And having beginners, or beginners representative, come to the meeting and give us feedback is a great idea. I would love to have more of those.
Okay. Uh, does the committee consider any breaking changes in the foreseeable future?
Right. So that's a good, yeah. So that's question have quite a lot of baggage that I'm not sure that everyone are aware of. So I'll just very briefly scan. So I would suggest the committee is split um, roughly 50-50. I would think maybe a bit less now since Google have left. Um, in, Between people that feel that we need to maintain ABI compatibility, which is quite a challenge, and between people that feel that we need to break this and move on and get improvements and optimizations that we are now unable to. And this is a really like I would say even the the hardest disagreement point that we have, as a committee, which affects quite a lot of, range a large scope of our work, because making this decision basically affect almost every single proposal that we can get, and whether or not we can or can't improve certain things that we did in the past. And again, not everything is perfect. We are just human. um, so I don't, reading the atmosphere and the, in the committee now. I don't expect that we're going to get major breakage soon. I think that the governmenting opinion right now is not to do that. However, we do put a reasonable amount of effort in trying to have a solution that will allow us in the future to have some kind of compatibility and between versions, changing ABI between versions. There's the Epoch proposal by Vittorio, which I've heard unfortunately couldn't make it to the conference. I wish him speedy recovery. But there are there are quite a lot. I mean, and this again, as other things have been in the committee, there's multiple solutions, there are multiple design decisions and directions, and we discuss them quite heavily. And there, I mean, the topic of breaking C++ between different standard versions is brought up quite often. So if I would had to guess, I would say that we're not gonna break anything in the near future. I don't believe that we will, apart from, let's say, very very small things, the minor that wouldn't affect large amount of users. But it's also I do want to point out that we're working really hard on trying to figure out the best solution for this problem to allow us to progress forward and not to be held back by past decisions. And I mean, we do put effort in that. And again, this is like a mantra during this Ask Me Anything session. But if anyone have some suggestions or anyone wants to be involved in those discussions, we would love to get you into this into solving this problem. Um, I mean, we are. I think it's an agreement, the wide agreement that this is something that we need to address and hopefully solve in the next few years.
Yeah, I saw Bryce present on this on the keynote in CPP Now 2021, and there actually is a paper trying to kind of create an interface where you can break ABI and conserve ABI, and I think it's like the only way to move forward is to find something that solves this problem, to have a mechanism in the language that preserves ABI but also allows us to move forward. That's my opinion on that. And I think the committee should work on that. And I hope it does. It's a bit difficult to find out what the current standard on that is.
Yeah. I
But
just want
let
to
me
add
move.
one quick thing about this topic. I also recommend,
Yeah.
I'll post that in the chat, Titus Winter's talk from this year's first CPP North. It's talking about software development languages versus programming languages, and of course, having software development languages, types of languages that you can use in order to maintain long-term projects. And I think he has some really good points there. So I'd recommend people to go and look at this and watch the talk. And I think we should go towards the directions. I mean, at least consider the alternatives as presented in this talk, in my mind. So.
One of the views issues One of the views issues Nico pointed was caching, which okay. One of the views Nico pointed to is like an issue with caching, which can bring unexpected problems when a view is reused, and caching does not make sense when you don't reuse things, right? Did you consider removing this, at least making it like optional via template parameter?
Okay, so yeah, that's an interesting question. So, I mean, first of all, I know I want to say, I want to make a clarification before I answer. My opinion on ranges is not like the absolute truth for anything. Like I'm just another expert that have interest, except, but like when we bring topics to SG9, we have a broad discussion, and um, just the fact that one person thinks that something is correct doesn't mean, I mean, we can change our minds during the discussions in the group. So I would say that I would think that this sounds like a good direction. I would love to see a proposal on that. Um, just to give you, a more wider view of this, like generally of the topic of passing parameters, or making um, having different flavors of the same thing. So customization points, I think, are a really important thing here. We When we have, for example, a view, we need to be able to ask the users, like, what do you want us to do with that? Just like oversimplified um, model of the thing, but what do you want to do with that? Do you want, for example, cache or no cache, etc.? But on the other hand, we can't have infinite number of customizations, right? Because that would be like, it's a challenge to start using something that you need to pass like infinite, like true, false, I don't know, 5, 10, whatever. Start adding like more and more ways to customize the utilities from the library is also not good. So there's a balance, and I mean, I would from first reaction, without seeing any proposal, I would say that this sounds like something that could be reasonable to customize, but we should also remember that we can't customize everything all the time, because that would make the language unusable. And again, this is my personal view, and it could be that this thing will be brought up in a discussion in SG9, and people will say, no, this, I mean, we don't want anything like that. We don't want to involve, implementation details into the design scope of ranges, which is also a valid claim. So there's a trade-off to be made here, but be happy to see a paper or a proposal, and we can discuss it and decide whether to move on with that. So
What do you think about undefined behavior in the standard? Why is it acceptable at all?
wow, that's really good questions coming from your audience, I have to say. It's like all the edge cases and the dark corners of C++ are all being brought up. Yeah, so I'll be happy to give you my experience with undefined. So undefined behavior is indeed intimidating when you first stumble into that, and when you first, try to do something and it compiles, but then later and it compiles and works, of course, and then later you find out that you've been actually doing something really wrong, and the standard was, telling you not to do something like that, and if you do, then everything will burst into flames, and it's hard to understand I mean, this makes sense, it works. Why do we need to not allow it? So I think I came to appreciate undefined behavior more um, when I, for example, first went to Clang, to LLVM conference for compiler developers. And there you start to see the scope of what the compiler can do with undefined behavior. So undefined behavior is in fact a very powerful tool. Um, Leaving things undefined is, in a way, letting the compiler do the right thing, do more smarter things with your code that you not necessarily always would have thought of yourself. So um, undefined behavior have, again, I came to realize, and definitely not my first my first impression, but I came to realize that, I mean, I value this tool. I think that I would even say, in a philosophical approach, developers are probably less good in, making the best optimizations and everything in comparison to the compiler. Most cases, not always. Sometimes we have more information and we can do things better than the compiler because we know something about the program the compiler doesn't. But in general, I would trust my compiler to do things. And undefined behavior is one of the tools that we give to the compiler in order to allow it to do whatever it feels or thinks that is best. And I think that we should value that and not be afraid of undefined behavior, um, because this is an important tool. Of course, not to say that, in some cases, yeah, it seems strange and maybe it doesn't make sense and maybe we shouldn't have done that. So, you know, but yeah.
Yeah. So Kilian asks, who is the most hardworking person on the C++ committee?
Oh wow, that's I don't think um, I can think of a few people. I don't think it's like, you know it depends on a lot of a lot of ways. Sometimes writing the largest number of papers is, considered doing the hardest work. But sometimes also, um, you know encouraging people to propose, to make good proposals, is also really hard work and needs a lot of time and effort, and I think is also important. So I think this question is kind of, I can answer it and
It's the biggest.
not, yeah, and not get people offended. But I really think that we have a lot of people doing really great work, and I do my best um, to call them by names in my Twitter posts. And so if you follow up my Twitter posts, you probably see a few of the names of the people that work really hard. But I would prefer not saying here because I'd probably forget someone. Definitely a lot of
So
people put in a lot of effort.
two people that come to my mind is, I remember that Jens Maurer is very much involved with the wording and the standard Ds, and that is a tough job to get that right, to speak the language of the committee and the standard, and to make sure that you express what is in the standard, that means what it means. And I remember spending part in that group when I joined when I didn't join the committee, but I was a guest in one of their meetings in Cologne. And yeah, that's debating half an hour about a sentence and how to correctly order words, or debating about which verb, is tough. And of course, I think we should give a shout out to Coratin, who is definitely a hardworking member of the committee. And I think that there's a lot of hardworking people, and there's a lot of people we probably don't know about, which are not like that public visible. And generally, yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people work together in the committee. It's not like, that the hardest working person, whoever that is like having the biggest influence. They're just one of many.
Yeah, and if we already bring up wording people, then for library, it's Jonathan Wickley and Jeff Greenland that does
Yeah,
that.
I'm not up to date
That's also
doing
hard.
this.
So yeah, I would agree with your perspective of having, like, the wording people are definitely are definitely doing a good job. But yeah, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of people that put great effort. So I really think, like, I really appreciate every one of them.
So when we're on the committee and you're chairing a group, like, what is like the latest paper you have been involved with?
Yeah, so it's been a while. Attributes on lambda expression, I think, is the recent paper that I've actually, yeah, so that paper is with Villa and David, and I mean, I did part of the work. David did a lot of the wording, and Villa also, and but I think it's a nice one. But I have to admit, I would love to be more involved and have more papers. Um, in a way, being a chair is actually prioritizing not the not your papers and not necessarily the things that you find that are most important, but actually prioritizing the committee and the process more. I think people sometimes don't understand that the chair actually have to be impartial. They have to, like, in order
True.
to be a chair, you cannot have strong preference. Even though sometimes I have them, I really try to avoid bringing that up in the discussion, because the the most important thing is to have the process correctly and to have everyone's opinion being heard and to have constructive discussion. So yeah, I and not to say that there are many chairs that actually do manage to also do a lot of papers work, which I really admire. But you know, doing this thing is currently more important to me than working on my own proposals. I do hope to do that in the near future, though. I think that there's a lot of interesting problems that we have that are open that I would be happy to get deeper into and propose some solutions, but not right now.
What do we need in the next C++ standard versions for embedded developers? Anything you are excited about?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I can say what I think is important, and keep in mind that it have nothing to do with the priorities of the committee. I think that, yeah, I think that improving our exception mechanism, and I'm not talking about having necessarily new exceptions, even though that an option. But having the paper of low cost deterministic exceptions, I think, is really important and really beneficial. And we should look deeper into that and maybe try to have that. This is mainly implementation details, but we still need to be able to allow that as part of the standard. I think that that could improve a lot in the scope of embedded development. Um, which is, by the way, I think even you had a few surveys, but also made one or two, and about 50% of the developers, C++ developers, and a lot of them are, of course, embedded developers, don't use exceptions, and this is a problem in my mind. So yeah, if you would ask me, I think that improving the exception mechanism is something that we should definitely put effort on. Um, I think that we already did quite a lot for the embedded world. I think that people are not aware that C++20 is um, giving us a lot of tools for compile time to improve our compile time development. And I would imagine that reflection could also help. So, but I think, I mean, we're in a much better shape now than we've been, I would say, 6 years ago, uh, in regards to embedded development for C++. So, yeah. So more compile time tools, I guess.
Yeah, we've made some progress in that direction. That's true. Um, how much of the work you are doing in the ISO is bureaucratic, not technical work? Does it feels more like unnecessary overhead, or is it actually helping?
So again, from my experience, and the ISO process, I think it's good. I really do. I mean, the main overhead that we have is for documenting all the discussion and the decisions, and that's a very important thing that we need to do in order to avoid repeating discussion. So that thing, I think, will not go away, regardless of which process, sorry, we're going to choose. Um, Personally, I don't feel a lot of overhead coming from, just the fact that this is standardization progress. Probably likely that our convener and the chairs of library and core groups that are basically the last stage before these things get into the standard experience a bit of more of the overhead. But I think still, again, my personal view is that the progress is good. Um, you know, standardization may sound annoying and kind of a lot of governmental and bureaucratic things, but at least for me, I don't think we feel that on a day-to-day basis in our work. The discussions are technical. Apart from documenting everything, we don't need a lot of extra effort.
Okay. What should a person who has just joined the committee and has been reported to ISO as an expert do? Join the SG of the group?
Yeah. So first of all, there's not everyone are aware, but the ISO CPP org um, website actually contains quite a lot of useful information. So first of all, I think you should, like, if you've just joined, you should first of all, yeah, thank you, um, recognize which topics are you interested in. And that's very important because you wouldn't be able to capture everything and all the information all at once. You have to start somewhere. So first of all, identify which groups do you think are interesting, which topics do you think are interesting, and start from there. And I would recommend, as I do for people from our national body that want to be more involved, start by attending telecons of the study group that you're interested in the topics they're working on. Start to hear the terms and start, getting the terminology to feel more comfortable with the terminology. And this is very important because otherwise, just popping in one of Workgroup 21's meeting may be intimidating. Even though that if there's one in your area, I would probably suggest that you'll join it. Still, um, so first of all, as I said, join the groups that you're interested at. Follow up on the reflector. Try to read more of the reflector posts and emails as you get into the topics. And then the next thing I would probably suggest doing is trying to collaborate with someone and write a paper, or at least try to start writing a paper. It doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't have to be like the largest feature that we currently, it doesn't have to be reflection, but you should try at least and start working, collaborating with someone, and that's how you get to know the progress, because and the process, because a lot of people are not aware of like, not exactly sure what it means to be a member of the committee, etc. The largest impact that you can do is actually by writing papers and by making suggestions, by providing feedback to other people. By the way, that's a stage I forgot to mention. Also, remember to give feedback to other people on their proposals, especially if it's something that is close to your domain or that you do work heavily on. in your day job, for example. That would be very helpful. So yeah, that would probably the process that I would suggest. And of course, attend the meetings, attend the telecons. Uh, there's a lot to do.
All right. This brings us to the full hour, and there's no more questions. Um, so, thank you for coming. Thank you for being our guests from Israel to answer all those questions. And uh, thank you for coming and your time. It was really a pleasure to have you, Inbal. So, final words are yours. Any plugs, anything we should still know about you and what you're like currently up to.
I just want to say, if anyone have questions or interested in the committee work, to follow up on that, feel free to approach me. I'm really excited about getting new people involved in the committee, and I really think that we have, as I've said, a lot to do, and there's plenty of work to do. And I'll be happy to get you approach me, and we'll move on from there. And thank you, Jens, for organizing this. That was really fun. I got to talk about all as I said, the darker corners and all the tough topics, and that was really fun. And good luck with the conference that I hear is doing great. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope it's like two-thirds are done.
Yes, I hear great
Um,
feedback. So
I think like we had a great day today, and we generally had a good conference, and it's so awesome to be back in Berlin, and I'm looking forward to yeah, have another day, and then this will be another awesome conference, and in years that's just an achievement. Um,
conferences are fun.
and with that, I'm going to close the live stream and going to take us offline. I want to thank the audience, and I want to thank everyone for the questions. Um, we might do that again in the future. Um, see you tomorrow, everyone. Thank you for coming.